Well, our next guest had a front row seat to the royal family from inside the household. Paul Burrell spent 20 years working alongside the royals.
He started as a footman to the Queen before becoming Princess Diana's butler, regularly crossing paths with Prince Philip. From a life in service to a life as a celebrity, Paul Burrell's time as Princess Diana's butler gave him a rare royal insight that the world craved.
She told me that she had been given a ring and asked me what to do with it. And I said, fourth finger, right hand.
He spent a decade by Diana's side.
Wasn't I a lucky guy?
I know.
To look after the most beautiful woman in the world.
Before that, he served as the Queen's footman, even travelling with Her Majesty overseas. It meant he saw the real Prince Philip, the one who took a shine to Diana, convincing Charles to propose and eventually counselling the young pair when their marriage started to fail.
There were many arguments behind closed doors. Their relationship was not one of a great love affair. In the beginning it was. Those boys were born out of love, but then it went sadly wrong.
And Paul Burrell joins us now from London. Good morning to you. There was clearly a soft side to the Duke, wasn't there? What was he like?
Yes, there was. And good morning to you and everyone watching. Yes, it's a very sad time for Her Majesty, and my thoughts are with her. And yes, the Duke did have a very soft side, and he was a very funny man. On many occasions I witnessed that, and I always remember the day I was stood in the Queen's sitting room at Buckingham Palace, and all the corgis were fast asleep, all 9 of them, and they were blocking the door from the Prince's dressing room, and he was trying to get through to the Queen, and he was forcing the door open, and he was cursing and swearing, and these dogs, why do you have so many? And the Queen, as calm as a cucumber, stood there and said, but darling, they're so collectible. And that was Her Majesty. They were yin and yang. Prince Philip's contract was to be funny, he was to be outspoken, and yet the Queen just retains her humility and her quietness. They were a perfect couple, and I've been thinking about her sleeping at Windsor in her tower, in her bedroom, and looking at that dressing room door in the corner of her room and thinking, he's never going to come through that door again. Yeah. And that's so sad. Yeah. She's suddenly realised she's lost the captain of her ship. She's lost the CEO of the House of Windsor, and nobody can fill that void. And now, for the rest of her life, she will live in Windsor Castle. I don't think she will ever go back to Buckingham Palace, and she will stay there and remember those happy times. Do you know COVID in England? We've been in lockdown for forever, it seems. And what it did was, for the Queen and Duke, it brought the Duke back into the Queen's orbit because he'd retired to Sandringham, and then he suddenly found himself back at Windsor Castle and in HMS Bubble at Windsor Castle, and the Queen and the Duke, 2 old people, sat there reminiscing about their life and about the funny times, and of course Australia. And you know they adored Australia, and I came to Australia with them. I came and stayed in every government house in Australia, and they loved the people of Australia. Right. And I'm sure you're now thinking of your sovereign, who's bereft and has lost her wingman.
So you don't think she'll go back to Buckingham Palace, that she will just stay in Windsor Castle for the rest of her life?
I do. I do, because Buckingham Palace is the office, it's the London headquarters of the royal family, but the Queen's home now is Windsor Castle, and I think it's easy for her to stay there. She's just had 2 new corgi puppies, which take her outside, and you said the beauty of dogs is they take you out. They take you out into the fresh air, they make you exercise, and you meet people. It's no good her staying inside those 4 walls and just living her life out like that, because she likes to be with people. And as soon as this lockdown ends, I think she will get out there again and start to meet people. But make no mistake, Koshi, she will die Queen. She will never, ever retire and give up that responsibility. Not now. Not ever. Okay.
A lot of Australians said over the weekend that they really related to the Duke because of his sense of humour and because he kept getting into trouble. Is that how the Brits find him?
Yes, that was his job, though, wasn't it? It was written into his contract. He was there to break the ice, to make the gags, to be funny, because the Queen couldn't do that as head of state and head of church, but she let him do it, and she just rolled her eyes and used to say, well, that's Philip, isn't it? And you know, at night time, he used to call her Cabbage. That was his nickname for her. Can you imagine the Queen being called Cabbage?
Not really.
I think
it's just a term of endearment.
How did that come about?
I don't know how it came about. I think it has a French derivative. It's something about my sweet one or something like that. But it's something which he always carried on. He was, of course, they were very much in love. And they signed a contract so long ago. They were an old-fashioned style couple, and they very rarely were apart during their time together. And as I said, the Queen will really, really miss him, because she deferred everything to him. He was the common sense. He was no nonsense. He was no frills. He didn't like the pomp and pageantry. He didn't like all those people fussing over him all the time. And he didn't understand why, you know, the Queen liked it. But the Queen was so used to it from her life anyway.
You're giving us a lovely insight into him because, as you said earlier, he was outspoken. He often got into trouble about it. And there are certain sections of the community that goes, oh, he's just a grumpy old buffhead, a grumpy old man that's out of touch. You're painting a very different picture.
Well, he was a man of his time, wasn't he? I mean, he never would offend anyone. He wouldn't mean any offence by what he said. He was just so outspoken. He just said what came into his head. And the Queen,
is honest.
Well, she couldn't ever say those things. But he did. Philip did. He could say, if I pulled that zip down on your dress, I'd get into an awful lot of trouble, wouldn't I? Or, you know, he just thought what came into his mind. But he was a very kind, sensitive man. And that was illustrated by my time with the Princess, of course, when, during her divorce, the Queen and Prince Philip sided with their daughter-in-law, not with their son. And what Prince Philip wrote to the Princess, I saw all those lovely letters when he wrote to dearest Diana, and she wrote to her dearest Pa. And he said to her, and his words were exactly, Mamma and I cannot understand for the life of us why Charles would choose Camilla over you. That was his stand. That's what he felt. That's what he wrote.
Wow.
Oh, my goodness. And don't a lot of Australians agree with
totally
that?
Right.
Yes.
Right with you, big fella.
You know, and don't we all think that?
Yep.
That was Prince Philip saying that, and unprecedented. He didn't care. He just said what he thought.
Which is that was his endearing quality to a lot of people over here. Paul Burrell, thank you very much. What a fascinating insight, you know, from someone who was there for all those years. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
That's fascinating,
isn't
wasn't
it?
Yeah.
Really
Gives us a
good.
different side.
Yeah.